Beneath the warm glow of family loyalty, a devastating secret festered. When Anna Nkube uncovered her brother's hidden life, a web of deceit, drug trafficking, and human exploitation, she faced an impossible choice. Her love for Joshua was tested, but as the truth unraveled, so did her loyalty. Now a quest for justice and revenge begins, and nothing will ever be the same. Anna Nkube and her brother Joshua Nkube were inseparable as children, growing up in a modest but close-knit family in Harare, Zimbabwe. Joshua, 2 years older, was admired for his charm, intelligence, and protective nature. Anna idolized him, seeing him as a shining example of everything she wanted to be. Joshua's success in life seemed inevitable. After excelling academically, he built a thriving business in Johannesburg, South Africa. To his family and community, he appeared to have it all: an accomplished career, a loving wife named Ruth, and 2 beautiful children. In the shadow of her brother's success, Anna, now a nurse, often felt overlooked. But to her, Joshua remained the same, the perfect older brother. However, Anna's return to Harare after facing personal struggles abroad brought her closer to the truth. One evening, while staying at her parents' home, Anna stumbled upon cryptic text messages on Joshua's phone. These messages were from another man and were unmistakably intimate. Shocked, Anna brushed off the discovery, convincing herself it was a misunderstanding. But doubts crept in. Unable to shake the suspicion, Anna continued to dig deeper. Over time, she found more disturbing evidence: hidden bank accounts, secret meetings, and incriminating travel records. Her brother, once her protector, had been living a double life, entangled in criminal activities that went beyond infidelity. Weeks passed as Anna wrestled with the enormity of her discovery. The man she had trusted and looked up to was involved in drug trafficking, money laundering, and the exploitation of vulnerable people. The weight of Joshua's deceit shattered her worldview. Confrontation seemed unthinkable, but the truth gnawed at her, unraveling any illusions of the brother she once adored. Anna's loyalty to her family was now tested. Her love for Joshua clashed with the growing need to expose his crimes. She had to make a choice: stay silent and protect the man who had betrayed everything she believed in, or take action, no matter the cost. The weight of the secrets Anna uncovered was unbearable. Each time she saw Joshua, the bitter sting of betrayal gnawed at her. How could her once protective brother, the man she had trusted her whole life, be capable of such cruelty? Joshua wasn't just hiding infidelity, he was using his business as a front for drug trafficking and money laundering, all while exploiting vulnerable people to build his empire. The image of Joshua as a successful, respectable businessman was now shattered beyond repair. Anna's mind spun with the gravity of his crimes. This was not just about family betrayal. This was about the damage he had caused to others, innocent people who had suffered while he amassed wealth and power. Every discovery fueled her anger, turning her love for Joshua into cold hatred. At first, Anna tried to pretend nothing was wrong. She went through the motions of daily life, interacting with her family and community as though everything was fine. But inside, the storm of rage and sorrow grew. She couldn't unsee what she knew. Every smile, every word Joshua spoke seemed like a cruel mockery of the truth. Anna felt suffocated by the enormity of what she had discovered and the responsibility she now carried. For weeks, Anna struggled with her next move. She couldn't confront Joshua directly. His wealth and influence made him nearly untouchable. Even if she exposed him, his connections could allow him to escape justice. The thought of confronting him felt like a losing battle. But remaining silent was no longer an option. Her anger hardened into a dangerous resolve. Joshua had ruined lives, and he deserved to face the consequences. But the more she thought about it, the more exposing him didn't seem like enough. What would a public scandal do? With his resources, he might survive it. No, Joshua needed to lose everything. The idea of taking revenge began to form in Anna's mind, dark and insidious. What if she didn't just expose him? What if she brought him down entirely? Could she, the sister who had once idolized him, become the one to destroy him? The thought both terrified and empowered her. Anna's plan began to take shape. She would gather all the evidence, meticulously document everything: his shady financial deals, his communications with criminal partners, his role in human exploitation. She would build a case so ironclad that no amount of money or influence could save him. But that wasn't enough. A mere scandal wouldn't satisfy her. Joshua needed to feel the weight of his sins, to face the same fear and despair he had caused others. It was no longer about protecting herself or her family, it was about justice. Or perhaps it had gone beyond that. Perhaps it was now about vengeance. Her plan became more elaborate. She would strike when Joshua least expected it, when he was vulnerable, and when his reputation and family were most at risk. Anna knew that such a decision would make her cross a line, one from which there was no return. She wrestled with her conscience, but the rage in her heart overpowered any lingering doubts. Joshua had chosen greed and destruction over family. Now, he would pay. She began quietly gathering more evidence, careful not to raise suspicion. Her moves were calculated, her face a mask of calm when interacting with Joshua or their parents. Every piece of damning information she uncovered brought her closer to the moment of truth. Her brother had betrayed the people who trusted him the most, and now she would be the one to decide his fate. Anna's plan was dangerous, but she was determined. Joshua had built an empire on lies, and she was ready to tear it all down. There would be no mercy. As the days passed, Anna's obsession with her brother's betrayal deepened. The more she uncovered about his hidden life, the darker her thoughts became. It was no longer just about exposing him as a fraud or revealing his illegal dealings. Anna wanted him to feel the pain, fear, and betrayal he had caused. The line between justice and revenge blurred in her mind, and she found herself spiraling toward a breaking point. One evening, after weeks of sleepless nights spent gathering evidence, Anna stumbled across a deal Joshua was about to close. This deal wasn't just shady, it involved human trafficking. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. Her brother, the man who had once shielded her from harm, was now profiting from the exploitation of desperate, vulnerable women. The depth of his depravity shocked her to her core. That night, sitting in front of her laptop, tears of anger and disbelief blurred Anna's vision. For weeks, she had tried to convince herself there was some explanation, some reason for Joshua's actions that could justify his behavior. But there was none. He wasn't just flawed, he was a monster. Her mind raced as she considered what to do next. She had gathered all the evidence she needed to destroy Joshua's reputation and bring his criminal empire to light. But confronting him or going to the authorities didn't feel like enough anymore. The law wouldn't be able to truly punish him. His money, his connections, they would allow him to escape real consequences. And that wasn't justice. Joshua deserved more. He deserved to lose everything, just as he had taken so much from others. The thought terrified Anna, but it also gave her a sense of power she hadn't felt in years. She had the evidence, the knowledge and the means to destroy her brother. Now all she needed was the resolve to follow through. Then one evening, an opportunity arose. Joshua invited Anna to dinner with his family at their home. He wanted a normal family gathering, unaware of the storm brewing in Anna's mind. As she sat at the dinner table, listening to Joshua boast about his latest business ventures, her disgust grew. His wife, Ruth, and their 2 children laughed and played in the background, blissfully unaware of the monster they lived with. The perfect family image was nothing but a facade. Anna excused herself to the bathroom, splashing cold water on her face, trying to steady her nerves. Looking in the mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back at her. A woman consumed by rage and ready to do whatever it took to bring her brother to his knees. Returning to the dining room, Anna forced herself to smile at Joshua, but the decision had already been made. She couldn't simply expose him and walk away. His crimes were too heinous for a mere public scandal to be enough. Anna needed to make him feel true despair. That night, as she left Joshua's house, her mind was clearer than it had been in weeks. The path ahead was set, and there was no turning back. She would bide her time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But when she did, Joshua would not only lose his empire, he would lose everything. The cold determination that now coursed through Anna was unrecognizable from the woman she had been just months ago. She had crossed a line, and there was no returning to the sister who idolized her brother. Now she was the architect of his downfall. Her plan was set, and the final pieces were falling into place. Joshua wouldn't see it coming, and when he finally realized the full extent of what she had done, it would be too late. Anna's transformation was nearly complete. What started as an internal struggle between loyalty and justice had turned into a cold, calculated plan. She had become the master of hiding her emotions, presenting a calm exterior while meticulously plotting her brother's downfall. Joshua remained blissfully unaware of the storm brewing just beneath the surface. The next few days were critical. Anna knew she had to play her cards right. One misstep, and Joshua might sense something was wrong. She maintained her facade perfectly, helping out with family gatherings and pretending to be interested in Joshua's business ventures. In reality, she was laying the groundwork for the final strike. Anna decided the moment had come to lure him into a false sense of security. She invited Joshua to dinner at her apartment. It had been a long time since they'd spent any time alone together, and she made sure her invitation sounded innocent. "Just the two of us," she said, "like old times." Joshua agreed without hesitation, never suspecting that this dinner would be the beginning of the end for him. The night of the dinner arrived. Anna prepared her apartment with meticulous detail. She wanted everything to feel normal, comfortable. The table was set with candles, Joshua's favorite meal was ordered, and the ambiance was warm and inviting. Joshua needed to believe that this was a simple sibling dinner, just like it had been many times before. Joshua arrived as confident as ever, his charm on full display. He greeted Anna with a wide smile, complimenting her on the setup. For a moment, Anna felt a flicker of the old bond they had shared, but it quickly faded. She was focused now. Her mission was clear. They ate dinner, reminiscing about childhood memories and laughing at shared jokes. Joshua appeared completely at ease, unaware that the person sitting across from him was no longer the little sister who adored him. Anna steered the conversation carefully, keeping it light at first, but slowly pushing it toward more personal topics. She wanted him to drop his guard completely. After dinner, over a glass of wine, Anna leaned in, her voice soft but deliberate. "Joshua, I've been thinking a lot lately about us, about our family." Her eyes locked onto his. "It feels like there's something unspoken between us. Something you're not telling me." Joshua's smile faltered for just a moment. "What do you mean, Anna? We're fine, aren't we?" Anna kept her tone light, but her words cut deep. "Are we? I feel like I don't know you anymore. Like you're hiding something. Something important." A flicker of unease crossed Joshua's face. He put down his glass of wine, his confident demeanor slipping ever so slightly. "What are you getting at?" Anna's heart raced, but she remained calm. She had prepared for this moment. "I know, Joshua. I know everything." Her voice was cold, calculated, and for the first time she saw fear in her brother's eyes. Joshua's expression hardened. "I don't know what you're talking about," but Anna didn't let up. "I know about the drugs, the money laundering, the trafficking. I know how you've built your empire, and I have the proof to destroy it." The silence between them grew thick, heavy with tension. Joshua stood up abruptly, his voice rising. "You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. You don't know what you're talking about." But Anna remained seated, calm and collected. She held all the power now, and she wasn't going to let him scare her. "Oh, I know exactly what I'm talking about. I've seen the evidence, and I'm going to make sure everyone else sees it too." Joshua's bravado crumbled in an instant. For the first time, the man who had always been in control was at a loss for words. He took a step back, his eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape. The trap was set, and now Joshua knew it. His sister, the person he had once controlled, was no longer his ally. She was the one holding the keys to his destruction. As Anna watched the fear in his eyes grow, she felt a strange sense of satisfaction. She had waited for this moment for so long, and now it was finally here. Joshua's downfall had begun, and there was no turning back. Joshua's fear was unmistakable. His usual confidence was crumbling, and for the first time in his life, he seemed vulnerable, unsure of what to do. Anna had waited for this moment, and now it was unfolding exactly as she had envisioned. She had him cornered, with no way out. "You don't know what you're doing," Joshua finally said, his voice trembling. He took a step closer, trying to regain control of the situation. You're making a huge mistake, Anna. We're family. Whatever you think you know, we can fix this. I can make this all go away. Anna didn't flinch. She had come too far to be swayed by his empty promises now. She looked at him, her gaze cold and unwavering. There's nothing to fix, Joshua. You betrayed all of us. Me, Mom, Dad, and everyone who ever trusted you. Do you really think I'm going to let you walk away from that? Joshua's face twisted with frustration. He had always been the one to charm, to manipulate, to talk his way out of any situation. But this time, there were no clever words, no slick explanations that could save him. He sat down heavily, his head in his hands, muttering under his breath. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Anna's eyes narrowed. Explain it to me then. Explain how ruining lives and exploiting people is part of your grand plan. Tell me how destroying innocent people is justified. Joshua looked up at her, anger flashing across his face. You think it was easy? You think I had a choice? You have no idea what it was like, Anna. You've always had it easy. You've never had to make the tough decisions. You don't understand what it takes to survive in the world I'm in. Anna's expression hardened. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. The brother she had once admired was now sitting in front of her, justifying his crimes, trying to paint himself as a victim of circumstance. And what about the people whose lives you've destroyed, Joshua? The women you trafficked, the families you ruined. Was that part of your survival, too? Joshua stood up abruptly, pacing the room in agitation. You don't understand. You've always been so naive. You think you can judge me, but you have no idea the pressure I was under. I did what I had to do to keep everything together. Anna shook her head slowly. The man standing before her wasn't the brother she had once idolized. He was someone else entirely. Someone who had chosen greed, corruption, and power over everything that mattered. You had every chance to do the right thing, Joshua. You could have used your success to help people, to build something good, but instead you chose to exploit and destroy. Joshua's face contorted with rage. You think you're better than me? You think you're some kind of hero for trying to take me down? You don't even know the half of it. He moved toward her, his steps heavy with menace. But Anna didn't back down. She stood her ground, her resolve stronger than ever. She had spent too long living in his shadow, too long ignoring the truth. Now it was time to bring everything to light. I know everything, Joshua. I know exactly who you are. And that's why I'm going to make sure everyone else knows too. Joshua stopped in his tracks, his face pale with realization. His sister wasn't bluffing. She had seen through him, and she had the power to bring his entire world crashing down. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself, but there was no hiding the panic in his eyes. You won't do it, he whispered, his voice shaking. You won't destroy me. You don't have the guts. Anna stepped closer, her eyes locked on his. Watch me. The silence that followed was suffocating. Joshua stood frozen, his mind racing to find a way out. But there was none. Anna had all the evidence, and she was prepared to use it. She turned and walked toward the door, leaving her brother standing in the middle of the room, trapped in his own fear. As she left, Anna felt a strange sense of peace wash over her. For the first time in years, she was no longer burdened by the lies and secrets that had plagued her family. She had taken control of her destiny, and there was no going back now. Joshua stood in the middle of the room, his face pale, the reality of his downfall sinking in. The man who had always been in control, the man who had built an empire on secrets and lies, was now at the mercy of his own sister. His world was about to collapse, and he had no way of stopping it. Desperation clawed at him. Anna, listen to me, he called after her, his voice breaking. We can fix this. I can walk away from it all. The business, the money. Just don't do this. We're family. Anna stopped at the door, her hand on the handle, but she didn't turn to look at him. Family, she repeated softly. You destroyed this family the moment you chose power over us. You think I can just let that go? Joshua took a shaky step forward, his voice full of pleading. I did it for us, for you, for Mom, for Dad. Everything I've done was to protect this family. Anna finally turned to face him, her eyes full of a cold, unrelenting anger. No, Joshua. Everything you did for yourself. You used us as an excuse to justify your greed. You ruined lives to protect your empire, not your family. Joshua's desperation morphed into panic. He had always been the one with the answers, the one who controlled the narrative. But now the weight of his decisions was pressing down on him. He had nowhere left to hide, and the sister he had once seen as weak and naive was now the one holding all the cards. Anna, please. His voice was barely a whisper. Think about what you're doing. But Anna's mind was made up. I've already thought about it. This isn't just about us anymore. It's about the people you hurt, the lives you destroyed. You don't get to walk away from this, Joshua. She turned and left, leaving Joshua standing alone, his world crumbling around him. The next morning, Anna walked into the police station, her bag heavy with the evidence she had meticulously gathered over the past few weeks. Her heart pounded in her chest, not with fear, but with anticipation. She had crossed a line, but it was one she was willing to cross for justice. At the front desk, she spoke calmly. I need to speak to a detective about an ongoing criminal enterprise. The officer raised an eyebrow but nodded, gesturing for her to wait. Minutes later, a detective named Moyo called her into a small, quiet room. He looked at her intently, his eyes sharp and curious. What can I help you with? Anna took a deep breath. My name is Anna Nkub. I have information about my brother, Joshua Nkub. He's involved in drug trafficking, money laundering, and human exploitation. Detective Moyo's expression shifted from curiosity to seriousness. Those are serious accusations. Do you have evidence to support this? Without hesitation, Anna opened her bag, pulling out documents, messages, and recordings. Everything she had gathered was placed on the table. The weight she had carried for so long was finally lifted. I have everything you need, she said, her voice steady. It's all there. The detective's face was unreadable as he reviewed the evidence. He nodded slowly. We'll need to verify this, and there will be an investigation. Are you prepared for what comes next? Anna looked him in the eye, her resolve unshakable. I'm ready, whatever it takes. As she walked out of the station, a strange sense of calm settled over her. For the first time in weeks, the fear, the anger, and the guilt began to fade. She had done what needed to be done. Now it was up to the law to bring Joshua to justice. But even as she felt the first hints of peace, Anna knew that this was only the beginning. The empire Joshua had built on deceit was about to crumble, and the fallout would affect more than just him. She had set the wheels in motion, and soon the world would see Joshua for who he truly was. The days following Anna's visit to the police station were filled with a blur of activity. Detective Moyo wasted no time launching an investigation. Joshua's seemingly untouchable empire began to show cracks. Rumors spread through the community, whispered in hushed tones. Joshua Nkub, the respected businessman, was under investigation for drug trafficking and money laundering. The perfect image he had spent years cultivating was starting to unravel. Anna watched the events unfold with a strange mixture of satisfaction and sorrow. She had delivered the evidence, but the consequences were just beginning to take shape. News of the investigation quickly spread, and those who had once aligned themselves with Joshua started to distance themselves. His business partners, many of whom had suspected something shady but turned a blind eye, now severed ties to protect themselves. The dominoes were falling, one after another. Joshua, once so confident and untouchable, was now panicking. His smooth charm and calculated business sense were no longer enough to shield him from the growing storm. He tried desperately to control the situation, calling in favors, reaching out to powerful connections, doing anything he could to cover his tracks. But it was too late. The net was tightening around him, and there was no escape. Anna heard through mutual friends that Joshua's wife, Ruth, was devastated. She had no idea about her husband's criminal activities, and when detectives showed up at their home with a search warrant, her world crumbled. Ruth packed her things, taking their 2 children and moving in with her parents. The family Joshua had worked so hard to protect with his lies and deceit was falling apart, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Anna felt a pang of guilt for Ruth and the children. They were innocent in all of this, yet they were suffering the consequences of Joshua's actions. But that guilt was tempered by the knowledge that Joshua's crimes couldn't go unanswered. His exploitation, his betrayal, and his greed had destroyed countless lives. It was only right that his own life would be destroyed in return. The investigation intensified, and soon the media got hold of the story. Joshua Nkub, the once revered businessman, was now making headlines for all the wrong reasons. News outlets reported on his arrest, his involvement in drug trafficking, money laundering, and human exploitation. It was all over the newspapers, television, and online. Joshua's name became synonymous with scandal. As Anna watched the news, her emotions swirled. Seeing her brother's face plastered across the screen, hearing reporters detail the charges against him. It felt surreal. She had been the one to set this in motion, but now that it was happening, the weight of it was almost overwhelming. There was satisfaction in knowing that justice was being served, but there was also a deep, lingering sadness. Joshua was arrested at his home in a scene that felt both surreal and inevitable. Neighbors watched in shock as police officers led him away in handcuffs, his once confident expression now replaced with fear and defeat. For a brief moment, Joshua looked across the street and saw Anna watching. Their eyes met, and in that instant, she saw the full range of emotions on his face: anger, betrayal, fear, and perhaps just a flicker of regret. But Anna's face remained unreadable, her expression steely as he was placed in the back of the police car. With Joshua in custody, the investigation continued, and more details of his crimes came to light. The full extent of his involvement in human trafficking and drug smuggling shocked even those closest to him. His empire had been built on the suffering of others, and now it was crumbling before everyone's eyes. Anna was called in to provide her account to the authorities. She gave her testimony, detailing how she had discovered Joshua's secrets and gathered the evidence against him. Each time she spoke, a strange sense of closure washed over her. The weight of years of secrets and lies was finally being lifted. She had done what she needed to do, and now the justice system would take it from here. But even as the legal process moved forward, Anna couldn't shake the lingering emptiness. She had succeeded in bringing her brother to justice, but it had come at a great cost. Her family was shattered, her community was in shock, and her parents were devastated. They had loved Joshua unconditionally, and now they were left to reconcile the man they knew with the monster he had become. As Anna walked through the quiet streets of her neighborhood, she felt the burden of it all pressing down on her. The price of justice had been steep, and though she knew it was the right thing to do, the loss weighed heavily on her heart. The weeks following Joshua's arrest felt like a strange new reality for Anna. The once vibrant community where she had grown up was now eerily quiet around her. She had gone from being known as Joshua's sister to the woman who had exposed the dark secrets that brought him down. The whispers and judgmental glances were ever present, and she couldn't escape the weight of her actions. Her parents were broken. The shock of Joshua's crimes had devastated them, and they struggled to come to terms with the truth. Her mother rarely left the house, avoiding the stares and the questions, while her father, once a proud and dignified man, seemed diminished, carrying the shame of his son's legacy. Anna tried to comfort them, but the damage was too deep. The loss of their son's reputation, combined with the loss of the illusion they had clung to for so long, left a wound that wouldn't heal. In her quiet moments, Anna wondered if she had done the right thing. The weight of her choices pressed on her constantly. She saw the pain in her parents' eyes, heard the hurt in her mother's voice, and felt the distance growing between herself and her family. She couldn't deny the cost of the truth, but there was something else too. A small, persistent strength deep within her. She had stood up for what was right, even when it meant tearing her family apart. She thought about the lives Joshua had ruined, the young women who had been trafficked and exploited because of his greed. In exposing him, she had given them a voice. She had brought justice to those who had none, and for that, she knew she couldn't regret her actions. Doing the right thing often came at a price, and Anna was willing to pay it. The day of Joshua's sentencing was gray and rainy, mirroring the somber mood inside the courtroom. Anna sat quietly as the judge read the charges against her brother. Drug trafficking, money laundering, human exploitation. The list was long, and each charge felt like another nail in the coffin of the man Joshua had once been. Joshua's lawyer pleaded for leniency, arguing that he had been a good father and a contributing member of society. But the prosecutor was unrelenting, detailing the destruction Joshua had caused, the lives shattered by his actions, and the overwhelming evidence of his guilt. When the sentence was finally delivered, 25 years in prison without the possibility of parole, Anna felt a strange mix of emotions. There was a sense of closure, but also an undeniable sadness. This was her brother, the man who had once been her protector and her hero. Now he was being taken away in handcuffs, his life reduced to a prison cell. His choices had led him here, but the loss still stung. He knew that she had been the one to bring him down, and there was nothing left to say. Outside the courthouse, Anna stood in the rain, letting the cool droplets wash over her face. She took a deep breath, feeling the tension that had built up inside her for so long slowly start to dissipate. It was over. She had brought her brother to justice, and now it was time to find a way to move on. In the weeks that followed, life slowly began to return to some semblance of normalcy. Anna spent more time with her parents, helping her mother with small tasks and spending quiet evenings with her father. The family was forever changed, but they were learning to navigate their new reality together, one day at a time. Anna also found a new purpose. She began volunteering at a local women's shelter, helping those who had been exploited and abused, women who reminded her of the lives Joshua had destroyed. It became her way of finding meaning amidst the wreckage, of turning her pain into something that could make a difference. Over time, the whispers in the community grew quieter. People who had once judged Anna began to see her differently. She wasn't just the sister who had exposed her brother's crimes. She was someone who had the courage to stand up for what was right, no matter the cost. It wasn't an easy road, but with each passing day, Anna found a small piece of peace. One evening, as the sun set over the distant hills, Anna sat on her porch and allowed herself to reflect on everything that had happened. She thought of Joshua, the brother she had once loved and the man he had become. She thought of the choices he had made and the consequences he now faced. And she thought of herself, the woman she had become, a woman who had found the strength to face the truth, no matter how painful. There were no easy answers, no perfect resolutions. Life was messy, and justice often came at a great cost. But as Anna watched the sun dip below the horizon, casting the sky in hues of gold and purple, she felt a sense of calm. She had done what was right, and that in the end was enough.